Hello and welcome. I'm Paul Amos, founder of the Redeemed, and welcome to the Redeemed Man podcast. As I always love, whether our guests are online or here in person, we have a special opportunity today to not only be with a person, but to be with a father and son who are helping lead an important ministry in Hamilton, Georgia, just outside of Columbus. Dan and Braden Rogers are now leading River of Life Church. And so thank you so much, gentlemen, for being able to come to the show today. We're excited to have you, and I'm looking forward to hearing about your stories and your ministry.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, yeah.
Honored. Absolutely. Well, as someone who worked for many years with my own father, there are a whole lot of dynamics we can step into about that, and I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to do so. But let's kick it off, Dan, with you and really talk about how River of Life Church came about and what you're doing and your focus is today for the church itself.
Yeah, sure. Again, thank you for having us on. Being at River of Life, this year will be 21 years that I'll be lead pastor there. And it's a remarkable story. I came there back in 2004 and have two boys, Braden and Brian. They were just young, very young, I think 5 and 3 years old at the time. And so it's been a remarkable, again, just journey how God's blessed our church. Very small church when we went there, if you know where Pine Mountain Valley is.
Of course I do.
Yeah, and so it's just out there. And so went there, and really, I'll be honest, we went there to stay maybe a couple of years and then move toward Atlanta, because we're from, my wife and I are from the Atlanta area. So thought we'll just, because I was pastoring in Illinois, been there for about 8 years, so we just really wanted to get back in Georgia and get back to closer to family. God really opened the door for us, and just here in Hamilton, and the Lord blessed us. We bought property there off of 27, and thus was the journey. And a church of 40-some people. It's just been a great opportunity of growth. And I tell you, I got to a place where I was going to really step out of ministry, not just move back to Atlanta and find another church through our denominational covering, but was just going to really step out because I felt like there was more. And but I was praying and asking God, do you want us to stay? And if you want me to stay, you got to speak to me. So I was in my home, had my Bible there, and I said, Lord, if you want me to stay, speak to me. So I just opened my Bible, looked straight down, didn't read chapter, just put my finger down. Now, I don't recommend this as that's the way you always do this. But I did that, and my Bible had opened to 1 Chronicles 28, verse 10. And when I looked down, it said, consider now, for I've chosen you to build the sanctuary of the house of the Lord. Be strong and do it. I took that back to about 40, 45 people at Pine Mountain Valley Church and shared that with them, and they got behind the vision. And so we've been on this journey, and it's just a great church there. And I have the motto, we can have a big vision in a small town. And God has just blessed us, and we're honored to watch what God's doing there at River of Life Church.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that journey. 21 years.
21 years.
Unlike what we see in some of the traditional churches that we grew up in, or I grew up in, where you had kind of a 7-year rotation and everything else. What's it like to be at a church for 21 years as a leader? I mean, I've experienced that and seen that in corporate America, but certainly with a church, that's more unique. I mean, how do you feel and how do you remain fresh and connected with some of your newer congregation members, but also continuing to be able to reach the longer-term members who, are probably seeing you in a very unique and special way?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think with the longevity there, what's kept it fresh is that you can't ever get into cruise control. You just cannot just stay and say, hey, okay, I've got my time in here. I can just cruise. At my age, I got probably another good 10, 15 years in me, and I could put it in cruise control. I could just say, hey, I'll ride this thing out to retirement but you got to stay fresh. You got to stay relevant. And our vision, and my vision, is to raise up the next generation. Wow. So I'm really focused on the next generation. So that's going to keep you moving forward. That's going to keep you focused. If you just get stagnant and status quo and just stay right there where you're at, and again, just be satisfied with who you have. But we're always trying to reach, the new people coming in and making that connection. And we make it personal. I often say I don't. After I'm finished ministering the word, I don't slip off and go to the office and hide out. I go to the lobby. I'm going to hang out in the lobby, and that's my favorite place outside of the pulpit, is to be in the lobby, hanging with the people, talking to the people, and just making connection. Wow. And I think that's what keeps it fresh, and the people that's been with me, and that's the remarkable thing, is the people that have come with us from Pine Mountain Valley, they're just as much into the vision, bought into the vision, support the vision, and they themselves stay fresh, and they're still like, hey, what's our next move? What are we ready to do? So they're all in this. They're all about moving forward, always looking into the next season, and they're bought into the vision of raising up the next generation. I really believe the call on my life is to raise up godly leaders, and I emphasize the word godly. We have a leadership deficit in our nation.
For sure.
And so what we're looking at is to raise up that next generation of leaders. So that keeps us fresh and going. That's why he's here.
Wonderful. Well, and we're going to get right to that in just a second, but I will say that that's kind of part of the definition of a leader, right? Not just the ability to share the vision and to create the vision, but someone who can then teach the congregation, in your case, or the leadership underneath you, how to go out and execute that vision, but also to then keep it fresh so that people remain excited about executing on that vision, because sometimes that vision is doing the same thing over and over, because it is producing good results. It is producing the right thing, and the Bible's not changing.
That's right.
But the circumstances with which we all go through life and each person that comes upon it is changing.
That's right.
And so, we have to stay relevant and also push things at the right time. Yeah. All right, Braden, it comes to you next. Were you 5 or 3 when the...
I was 5.
You were 5. Okay,
yeah,
I thought
my brother
so.
was 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have grown up in this church,
Yep.
Not just as a member of the congregation, but as a preacher's kid.
Yep.
And so talk for a few minutes about what it was like. What is that balance of father and pastor? And then, obviously something went well that you are now in as the Next Steps director.
That's right.
And so talk about that decision, and we can break this down to some different parts, but, also that decision to say, not only am I willing to follow in my father's footsteps, I'm willing to go to work for him because I believe he's the leader who's going to teach me how to be the leader I want to be.
That's right.
So just going back to the beginning of what it was like to grow up in that environment.
So growing up as a PK, shout out to all the PKs out there. I, it was fun being a church kid. I have very great memories of, laying up under a pew and drawing on the pew because we were in the church every single, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday, the revivals, all that kind of stuff. And so great memories. I have lasting friendships, from that group of 40 people in Pine Mountain Valley. And just really great memories. As I grew older, there is a stigma on preachers' kids, and there is that, don't say that in front of him because he's his dad's the pastor or whatever. And I kind of resented that for a little bit. I hated that. I hated that stigma. And so I kind of tried to distance myself from it. But I mean, it is what it is. I still love the church, growing up. It didn't repel me from that. And I would just say, as a son, my dad and my mom, they did to me, a wonderful job, never imposing ministry on us. Like, they never made us serve. He never wanted us to be, what was it, daddy
Yeah, Daddy called, Mama sent.
Daddy called and Mama sent. Yeah. I've said that all the time, and that's true. I mean, it's always been a choice. I know for me, what got me in church ministry from a serving level was that I was always banging on the table and playing with like pencils and doing beats and stuff. And so around, I think it was 9 years old, they were like, we got to get this kid some drum lessons. And so I got drum lessons, and then I started playing we finally put together a live band around age 9 or 10 or something like that. And I just played drums in church every Sunday.
Wow.
And until I was around 19, I believe, that's when an opportunity opened up to lead the worship team. And we were gearing up for Easter, and then the worship pastor he left, and so we needed someone to just fill in and get us Easter ready. Before that, though, it's kind of part of my testimony is that I had been learning just some instruments, just piano, acoustic guitar, with no ministry mindset behind it. I wanted to be able to play some tunes around a campfire and people sing and stuff like that. I didn't really have any vision behind it, but what I know now in hindsight is that the Lord was preparing me for that season that was coming. I didn't know it. So I was learning piano and learning guitar. And so when that opportunity opened up, I was able to coordinate the team together and get them ready for Easter. And we had a successful Easter. And so I just kind of stepped in as interim and stayed in it as interim. And I'm here today because I just said yes to that. And so I never really had a moment in a church service where I felt the call of God on my life. Like there's a lot of people have those moments, and I never had that moment, but I did realize once I was in the, serving in that role, I realized, man, I think I'm called to ministry, to full-time ministry. Never intended on doing it. People would always ask me at church, you're going to be a preacher like your daddy, and I would be like, no, it's not a career that you just choose, you got to be called to. And I didn't think I was called until I basically said yes to that, and here I am. That's what kind of got me to that to this point.
Well, Braden, you said something so important here that I want to emphasize for our audience. It isn't always an epiphany moment.
Yeah.
Not everybody has a moment where God comes down and speaks to them and tells them your life is changing or your life is going to do this. For some people, it is more of an evolving relationship, which I think is really what Jesus is calling us to either way, is that ongoing development. So, is there anything you would share with young people or people who are maybe young in their faith about listening to God without having that magical moment?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, for me, and that's not to say there are times where God does this, really powerful moment in a church service, and the presence of God is moving, and people get that clarity, and they know what's next. But I think for the majority of people, it is just taking a next step. We talk about this as we're walking with the Lord. You're just taking one step at a time in your journey with Christ, and so just continuing going forward and starting small. I would encourage young people to just get involved. And if someone asks you to do something, if someone asks you to stack that row of chairs, then just do it. If somebody sees something in you and they call it out, then I would lean into that. If they say, hey, you really led that prayer moment well. Maybe consider leading a Bible study or just taking a next step, not looking to jump to the platform or jump to have a microphone in your hand, but seeing what's right in front of you that God could be leading you to.
Yeah. Okay, I love you as a marketer, whether you know it or not. You said next steps as the next steps director three times in that answer.
It's in my blood.
That's just brilliant, buddy. I mean, that's the capacity to know how to lead people and to make sure as a leader you're casting that vision over and over, because it's not one time that makes you successful. It's repeating it, but doing so in a way that connects to people's attention.
That's right.
So tell us what a next steps director is, and is that another inclination for a youth pastor, or is that all about leading new people in the church? How exactly do y'all's roles mesh?
Yeah, it's a great question. So next steps director is a bit new for me right now, actually. I had a different title before, and I was doing a couple of different responsibilities. But ultimately, what the Next Step director does is I help people take next steps. We have some clear next steps at our church. That would be like getting saved. That's the first step.
Yeah.
But we know that salvation is not the end of your spiritual journey; it's the beginning. So there's steps to take after that, like water baptism.
Oh yeah.
So something like that will fall up under me, or getting in relationship, like what the Redeemed Men's Ministry does, getting in a small group. We call them life groups at River of Life. Getting in our assimilation process, we call it the growth track. And I know many people are probably familiar with that, but it's just getting connected to the church, learning about the church, having some self-identification assessments, so personality assessments, spiritual gifts, so that they can understand how God uniquely designed them, uniquely gifted them, so they can go make a difference by joining what we call the dream team, which would be like a volunteer, and getting on teams. So that's what I do, and we have some people on staff that help out in that way. But yeah, that's how I serve at the church right now as the Next Steps director.
Wonderful. Well,
yeah.
While some of your verbiage you just said may be foreign to some of our listeners, to me, who has really delved into Church of the Highlands, those are very familiar terms.
Absolutely.
So it's my understanding that River of Life comes out of being an ARC church and a church that was birthed out of Highlands, or partially birthed by Highlands, and that y'all are connected at an arm's length to Highlands. Dan, how does that work? I mean, how do you build your own culture, but also have someone who can inject? Is that a double win, or is that something that sometimes is, burdensome to have two different masters?
Well, our church, we're under a denominational covering, with the Church of God, but our relationship, for the sake of the story of our connection with Church of the Highlands. Some years ago, I had another staff member on, and he told me, he said, they call me PD there, and he said, PD, he said, we need to go to this Grow conference. I said, I don't want to go to another conference. I'm sick of conferences. He said, no, I really think you need to go to. We need to go as a staff. So I gave in, went to Birmingham, went to the Grow conference, and that is where it changed for us. We just needed systems. We needed to put a lot of this in, like what he's talking about, next steps and things like that. And that's where we learned that. So with our partnership and connection with Church of the Highlands, that's, we just took the systems, put it into play, started working on it, and it works. Wow. It just absolutely works. And so what I feel like is that, it really, I apologize, my vocal cords are all messed up. I've stripped my gears over the years from preaching.
Oh, yeah, I hear you.
So I've had a lot of issues with my throat. So and that's a great thing to have him and some others on the team, because they're going to be helping me more in that area. But I see that, I just see that what we're seeing is that we're moving forward. We're making these connections. We're making these, bringing these new people on. Like you talked about next steps. A lot of people don't know, what do I do after I get saved? What do I do? And we get lost in the crowd. We get lost in the crowd, so we don't know where we're going with that. And so you heard him, how he articulated. He does that so well. That's not me. I have the big vision. I see that. I connect that. I want to see people run with it. He can run with it. And the rest of my guys on the team, they run with it. So that's where we're at. It's just making that connection, getting those people on board, and he does a great job at that. Right. Son or no son, he just does a great job at it.
Well, we're going to delve into that for a second. I will apologize that I'm going to ask a few more questions because I feel like I don't want to burden you and your voice, but at the same time, y'all have great nuggets of information here, and this is just so great for our audience. So, all right, you're blessed with a child being born. Mm-hmm. You're already in the pastor world. You've got to raise up a congregation while simultaneously raising a son. And at some point along the way, you realize that God may have gifted him and placed him in the world to join the ministry. Give us the father's side of that story. And what is it like to try and grow others versus growing your own?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I'll be honest, that was tough. You know, with Braden, with his giftings and what he was doing, and my other son Ryan, he was a part of the church as well, and he lives in Guadalajara, Mexico. He's teaching English as a second language there,
Wow.
and so so you're weighing that out. Like Braden talked about, growing up as a preacher's kid, and the stigma that comes with it. His mom and I were very careful of that. We just wanted to be careful of how. I just didn't want him to feel that pressure. So, you know, and I'll be honest with you, Paul, there were times, and I've talked to him about this, I've probably maybe didn't be spiritual as much as I may have should have been at times, because I wanted him and Ryan to have a normal life. Because there is pressure. You're the preacher's kid. You can't do this. You can't go there. You know, how's it feel to be the preacher's kid? And you know, so, and I was sure that both of them may have gotten not invited to things like that. So we tried to make it as normal, and again, not spiritualize everything. And but yet, seeing the call of God on his life, do you groom him there at our church, or do you let him go somewhere else? But to be honest with you, it's like I don't want him to go anywhere else. He's got it. And we need him here because we were a growing church, and we are still a growing church. So I need his expertise, and I still need his input. And he represents the next generation, so I need to hear his voice as well in that. So so just navigating as a parent and a pastor, that can be tough. But then what I did, he and his mom, we just said, hey, we're Christians. So we'll just parent from a Christian standpoint.
Sure.
And if they mess up, they mess up. And they messed up. And so you got to treat them just like any other parent. You know, you just got to work through it. But I'm not going to go over there thumping him with the Bible. I do remember telling them one time now, and it's a joke at our church, because I spoke on it one time. But I got on to him, and I said, I'm a leader in this community. You can't go out there acting like that.
Yeah, sure.
But then I realized, but that's pressure, you know. So you love them, you care for them, you speak into them. Because, be honest with you, I'm a father first before I'm a pastor. You know, husband and father.
You know, Dan, I have to tell you, that's a profound statement. And I don't know if that's recent wisdom or lifelong wisdom for you, but I think that I've heard several pastors say the lack of doing that, the lack of seeing themselves as father first and pastor second, produced the wrong type of relationship with their kids.
Right.
And obviously, you two have something unique and special. So, Braden, you know, I listened to your dad's words, and for him to have at some point transitioned from seeing you as his child to seeing you as someone on the team, to then seeing you as someone who has the talent to make huge impact on the future. And he's already said that the future of the organization in many ways is the new people, which he's put you in charge of. You know, when did you feel that shift, or has it happened over a long period of time that your dad was able to so eloquently state and then actually deliver on transitioning from parent to partner?
Yeah. Over time. It's been over time. There wasn't probably a definitive day, you know, and you know, in the beginning stages, it was a little bit more maybe nerve-wracking or even awkward, maybe, of like, you know, I'm joining this staff team from at first a part-time level, very, very part-time, and then moving up. And so I think as I stayed in it, the credibility and just it being more serious, looking at me as more of as a partner, as you said, as a genuine employee at the church, as I've just stayed in it, and as I've just put my head down and work and try to create my own reputation, a good one, hopefully, but trying to, not in an unhealthy way, but get up a little bit up under, out of the nest, and produce my own results and work and try to develop fruit. And so, that's kind of probably been it's been a gradual shift, to answer your question, not a definitive day.
Which makes sense because leaders want to test us over time.
That's right.
And at some point, your dad had to go from being just dad to the leader.
Yeah.
Having been through my own experience, what do you call him at work?
That's a great question. That's part of the awkwardness that of working with your dad. I say PD.
Okay.
I tried pastor, and I will say pastor actually to dream team, to people that serve at church. At the office, just PD, and PD wants us to do this. This is what he's casting right now. I very rarely will say dad. Because you want to keep it professional.
Oh, sure.
You don't want to feel too mom and pop. So that's what I call him, PD.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's one of those tough things to navigate that dads don't always appreciate.
What'd you call your dad?
I called him Dan. So I referred to him. What I found is if I ever use the word dad, it lost respect in the decision what I was delivering because I was somehow trying to leverage him with a deeper relationship. And then second, I also felt like it made people uncomfortable. Like I was willing to leverage something that they didn't have.
Yeah.
And then finally, the worst part was I didn't want to be seen that way.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be daddy's little boy who didn't have the capacity to it. Because my thought was there were 20% of people who believed in me for no reason because of his reputation. There were 20% of people who were never going to believe in me because of where I came from.
Yeah.
But the 60% in the middle were my job to influence and to try and change. And I'm sure that's true at the church. Those 60% in the middle, especially with you having the opportunity to influence them in their next steps.
That's right.
You're picking up early a pivotal role in their walk. Mm-hmm. And so at some point, while the congregation may have been very tenured, over time, most of the congregation will have come through your next steps, which makes it a very different congregation for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was part of the process too, is that people that were joining the church, when we were smaller, everybody had access to my dad. I'll refer to him as my dad on this podcast.
Yeah, sure.
Not PD. But now that we've grown, they still have access. It's just not practical sometimes, and so a lot of them, I'm their pastor, or I've pastorally cared for them in a lot of ways. I've walked them through that, and so that's been part of the gradual process.
Dan, I'm struck, and in our conversations offline, with a big word, and that's nepotism. The reality is that maybe at some point, and I think in the Bible, of all the firstborns, and you being the firstborn, there was some almost entitlement, not the way we think of entitlement today in like a rude or almost a arrogant way, but by title. And but there are also biblical examples that lead to different ways, and God chose people that were not necessarily of the lineage. Yet we know in quite a few books of the Bible, one of the first ways he starts is putting the lineage out there. Right. And so talk a little bit about that balance, a little bit about the people who come from the church and the leadership like you and your son versus those who are from the outside. And I think of the example of Paul, who was as bad as they come and as far from the church as possible, who had no, history of that, and yet was brought in to write more of the New Testament than anybody out there,
Well, I look at it, Paul, when you talk about nepotism, and there are people in the church or anywhere, maybe where you were at is he got that position because, and I get that. I'm not going to push that away because it happens. We cannot pretend that it doesn't happen. Sure. It does happen. So, but I had a revelation by looking in and reading through the Old Testament. I was just reading through my Bible, but you look at the genealogies in this hard to pronounce name begat this hard pronounced name. You know what I'm talking about? So,
Thank you for saying that. 'Cause I think all of us think preachers just have an enunciation.
Oh,
of these,
no, not
that
this
is perfect.
preacher.
Yeah, I got you.
yeah, I'm from the South. I don't and so, but when you look at this, think about this. So over in Chronicles, it says that David even told his people, support the success of my son Solomon. Get behind him and help him as a leader and make sure he's successful. That's what David passed down. So father, son. So, and then it goes on to say that he, I think it's 1 Chronicles chapter 23, the first verse there, it says that he gave the leadership to his son Solomon. He gave it to him. And so what do you think the people thought at that time? What do you think people were thinking? That's unfair. Solomon gets it because of who his dad is. I get that. That's going to happen. But this was the way God worked it out. God brought it to pass like that. He passes it down. You think about I shared this with the staff recently. David, when he was picked to be, king, Samuel anointed him with oil. It says that he was anointed and chosen in front of his brothers. Mm-hmm. Well, think about his brothers. We read right through that. How did they feel?
Sure.
I mean, they're the older brothers, and David's the youngest, and he's the one selected. He's the one anointed. Think about Joseph. His brothers were jealous of him. So you're going to have issues like that, and that's just in the family. Think about people in the church that may think, or in the corporate world, well, he got it because she got it because who her dad is, who her mom is, whatever it is. But I just don't think we need to not give them an opportunity. Is it not my job as a parent to train him up in the way he should go? Mm-hmm. So when I do that, do I pull away and say, well, you can't be in this position because you're my son? Now, we've had those discussions when he was first coming into the ministry. How do we balance that? How do we communicate that? But people get behind our church. See, our church is so supportive, not only of Braden, but I have a very young staff. And so they get behind all these people, and they are very supportive, again, of the next generation. It goes back to that vision. And just think about, nepotism and father picking son. God sent his only son. He didn't send an angel. He didn't send another great prophet, a great rabbi, a great teacher. He sent his own son.
I've never thought of that. It's
Yeah.
such an obvious but brilliant thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I'm kind of so thrown off I lost my question. I'm not going to lie to you. Braden, I could make the argument that with the right relationship with a dad, you get a master class of experience because the wisdom and the number of different things that he's able to speak into you through watching his own experiences is more than anybody could pick up in a school or in a limited time with on-the-job experience. You, in some ways, have got more experience than anybody because of what you've been able to observe. Talk a little bit about that relationship and a little bit about how what you saw and what your dad may have spoken into you impacted the leader you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's that old axiom that says more culture is caught than taught. And so just being around my dad for a whole life, I've caught a bunch of things. And then it's a very biblical principle of when Paul said to imitate me or catch what I'm doing as he's imitating Christ. And so so that's what that is. I try to imitate a lot of what he does. I'll tell you a couple of things that I've been able to catch is just my dad's willingness to learn, and never stop learning. And not to tell any of your story, but you did grow up in a denomination where y'all were set in, as far as the philosophy to ministry. You did it for a long time, but even later in your pastoral ministry, you're open to learning. I mean, we went to the Grow Conference in 2019 and changed our whole ministry, not our whole ministry philosophy, but we did change a lot. And so just learning always having this learning mindset. Definitely caught that from him. I would say another thing is that regarding the church, there, before we went to learn some of these systems and stuff, there weren't as many, but yet the church grew. And that was because I think him leading by being a lobby pastor. He never ducked away, and people want to know that you care about them. They don't there's that old saying that everybody knows, but people wanted to have a hug or just speak to their pastor, or pray with be prayed for by their pastor, and be visited in the hospital or when it's that's him, and that's not me by nature. I'm an introvert. I'm totally fine sticking by myself. I get refueled by that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I do have to grow in those other areas as well as being highly people-oriented. And it has been a master class. He is a people person, and he leads people. People gravitate to him, and I've been able to catch that, watch a lot of it. Absolutely.
Having had that master class, you may also find there are gifts that God has given you as an introvert versus an extrovert that you've been able to hone, or they're philosophical things that aren't necessarily biblical or theological differentiations, but just differentiations in who you are. What are one or two of the things that you kind of think are unique about you and that distinguish your leadership from your dad's?
Well, I would say one that's complementary is he said, I'm a big vision person. Our church is on the other side of the road is a big, beautiful horse barn. And so he's always like, I want to go there. I don't think how we're going to get there. The way my mind thinks is how we're going to build a bridge to get there. And I hear the vision, but I don't even think of the grandeur of it. I think of what are we going to now do? What are some steps that we're going to take to start doing that? So I'm a very how person, how oriented. I really have a lot of clarity around systems. I think in just systems deliver vision, and so I feel like that's kind of even my role is to do that, and that's how I'm oriented. Another way that I'm a little bit different is, I would say that in being introverted, he's extroverted. Yeah, probably in the same vein of just setting the vision forth, and I'm just a little bit more detail oriented. That would be our biggest, starkest difference. But I think it complements each other.
Well, either you are a very good politician, knowing how to just be nice to dad and say that, or you all have found a very unique relationship that works well together. And I hope that's true now and forever in the future for however long y'all do it, because I hear you're about to become a dad.
That's right.
And so I understand that you're going to get another master class in what it's like to be a dad, and maybe realize that even more of that wisdom you saw growing up is true than what you thought when you were actually going through it.
Absolutely. I know that I've yet to uncover the wisdom that he has until I'm in that season, of being a dad and, calling and asking, hey, well, what do I do now? The baby's with us. What do we do? So, but yeah, I mean, absolutely. My parents were incredible parents to both me and my brother. Gave us a room and space to grow, and it was very fun. Like, it was just a fun home environment. And so, yeah, that would be something I'd love to replicate and just have a fun, loving environment.
It's amazing how kids can change you.
Yeah.
I say this with the utmost love and appreciation. But my mother-in-law was somebody who was an important part of my life until I had my first son. And that next day that when we finally brought him home, she was like a deity on wheels because, she understood all these things that I didn't even know. I hadn't even unpackaged the baby bottles and put them in to sterilize them yet. So I was just eating up all of these first-time experiences. So I do think parenthood starts to open your mind to wisdom you couldn't see, as well as the knowledge and experience that others have that they can bestow upon you. Yeah. So good luck.
Yes.
I will tell
I'm all ears.
Having 4 of my own, 3 boys and a girl, I can tell you that those are wonderful and unique experiences. Do y'all know what you're having?
Yes, we figured out 2 weeks ago we are having a girl.
Congratulations.
Yeah, having a girl.
I will tell you, it is vastly different, boys and girls. And if God blesses you with both, having had 3 boys, I thought I had it all figured out.
Yeah.
And then a girl came along, and it is so different. She will steal your heart and run your life. My wife looked at me the night that we found out we were having a girl, and she said, "Promise me that you will discipline her like you do the boys." And I looked her straight in the face and said, "That's not going to happen." So that was as honest as I'd ever been.
That's
and
right.
Yeah.
Now, 12 years later, my daughter manipulates that in big ways. And so she's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so you're going to love that. And what a great journey ahead of you. And, those cross-sex relationships are really unique. And for all those years, my wife had that with the boys. And then when Eden finally came along, I finally had that with a daughter, and it is unique and it is wonderful. And father and son is great, but I'm sure your relationship with mama is also extremely important. So we talk about the relationships with mom, how much pressure as your brother went off to Mexico was there for you to stay home, or did you not necessarily feel that kind of keeping the family local? Because, while we talk about the Bible and people following, very few men got up and left the family. I mean, the prodigal son is the most amazing example, and yet he returned to make the story such a big deal. Tell me about what it's like, and did mom and dad push you to stay home?
Yeah. No, I'm kidding. No, they definitely wanted both of us to stay home. I honestly thought, and I think they would probably agree with this, that I would have been in my brother's shoes.
That's true.
And to Ryan, my brother, he is building a school right now. So he's not even just teaching; he's actually about to start a school of his own. So
that's awesome.
So I think very highly of him. I thought that I would be doing that. I'm very surprised that I ended up my whole life. I wanted to move. There were some cities that I wanted to, not because I didn't like it. I loved it here. Obviously, still do. But I didn't have any intention on. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to, get up out of the house and see different cultures, and so, but not genuine pressure. Just like we won't see as much if you move, but nothing genuine. It was more joking, and they would have been fully supportive, and still are supportive. Whatever season would come about. I have no intention. My wife and I don't have any intention on moving. We love it here. We feel called. We feel called to the people around us. We have a great family, obviously, on her side as well. I have a great church family. I know that I have a village behind me outside of my blood family. I have a church family that's going to help out in raising this. Margot Lee is her name. And so,
it's beautiful.
So no pressure at all.
They're not going anywhere because I got a grandbaby.
Well, there's two sides to that coin, right?
Yeah.
In one side, you got people that feel blatantly that they have the right to spoil your kids in a way that you don't approve. On the flip side, you get dates with your wife because they're willing to take your kids at all times usually. And so, there's a lot of a balance there, and it's a beautiful thing. Let's kind of shift for a moment and talk a little bit about how do y'all work together, and how do you help lead men? It's just shifting toward our audience somewhat. You talked about life groups. You talked about, kind of the community. And we as a community are doing that outside the church. Yeah. And some of our guys are hesitant to step into the church because some ways they're church hurt or they have preconceived notions or whatever. But our goal is to not only build and foster this incredible community outside the church, but to help people eventually get into the church because we feel like that's such an important thing for them to do, and therefore we can be a bridge to it. Talk about that welcoming environment inside the church and what you're trying to help build as the next step, and what the foundation your dad has laid from the pulpit with the vision, because I want our people to understand that what we're doing is setting them up for a great opportunity within as well.
That's right. Yeah, so, if you come be a part of a local church, at River of Life or any church that's trying to build community, I mean, I would say to men that you need to be needed and known. Everybody wants that, and so that's part of those next steps is you want to feel needed. If somebody's asking you to be at a certain place and they need you to fill a role, that does something to our the chemistry of who we are as people. It's how God designed us, and to actually do something that makes a difference. And at the same time, being in a small group expression, a life group, or a Bible study, you need to have other men around you. And I talk to men all the time, literally all the time, that they say, I was hesitant to join a group, but when I did, we didn't sing Kumbaya, we didn't do anything weird, but we did open up with one another, and they have experienced real life change. We say that we believe life change happens in relationship, and that's a very just important truth in our church, in the church. I always just find it interesting that Jesus was the most anointed, full of faith. Obviously, he's the Son of God. If anyone could have done life and ministry by themselves, it was Jesus. But the first thing that he did when he got into ministry is he chose 12 other people to be with him.
Yeah.
He wanted to do it in relationship. So it's not even a matter of can you or can you not. It's just, it is God's way of doing it. And it's so much better to do life in relationship. So I would encourage to get that. That's what would happen if you took steps in our church, at least, to get in a group and find relationships.
Let's define relationship for a moment, because I know I went 40 plus years with relationships with men, which meant news, sports, and weather. We could sit in front of a game for 4 hours, never discuss one real thing. And I assume, but I want to hear you say it, or you, Dan, say it, that relationship means beyond the surface.
That's right.
That relationship means sharing life. It means a little bit of accountability, but it also means being there and being empathetic and being, a person who delves into another's life, is part of another life, and participates in what they need is my part of my definition. Absolutely. How do you think about it? How do y'all think about it? And what are one or two things that you find are those extra elements that really make for a great relationship among men?
Yeah.
For me, I think it's communicating to men. Men just want you to be real and honest. Cut through all the garbage, whatever, the pretend. They just want you to be real and transparent. And over at River of Life, I say it to our guys from the pulpit. I'm just honest with them, and I even say, wives, don't pressure him. He's being tempted from all angles, right? We're just being tempted. I'm being tempted. That's what I communicate. Don't think because I'm up here in the pulpit on the platform, I'm a pastor, I'm not being tempted. Now, when I talk about, connecting ministry to men, I'm pretty real and raw about it. We're all tempted. Pornography, the whole works, it's out there. Let's quit pretending it doesn't happen. Let's quit pretending that we're not being tempted. We are. Look, Father, Son, I'm being tempted, but I know he's being tempted. I just know that. I know that generation. Let's just quit pretending that our sons are not under attack. So let's rise up, stand shoulder to shoulder. Let's fight for each other. Let's quit pretending that there's that we don't have issues and there's not a battle going on. So let's be real, let's connect, and let's be accountable. And if you want to use biblical principles, I think for men we like rugged stuff, we like sports, we love all that. Use that to how to connect. And but men need to understand we're called to be bold, be brave. And I don't think anything is greater than in the area of being bold and brave is to get around other guys and be real and say, here it is. Here's what I'm facing. This is what I'm going through. And, guys, we're not going to, like if it was just us together. And Paul, if you were telling me, hey, this is what I'm struggling with, I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to say it because I'm a pastor. No, because I'm going to open up to you and say, I know exactly what you're facing. This is where I battle. This is what I go through. And I think it's something that we need to do as we work together and stand together and fight for each other and just be real. Just absolutely be real And that's what Braden's talking about, just getting these groups and hold each other accountable, talk about it. You'll win. That's how to win.
You know, it's so interesting you use battle and win because this is spiritual warfare.
Yes, sir.
And I think that one of the things that John Eldridge does such a great job teaching about is we are at war.
That's right.
And if you don't recognize that, that's one of Satan's greatest lies.
Right.
Is trying to believe that this is all just a normal life going on. Part of why we need men, and you think about the military and the army, and some of the greatest need is knowing to be with your the people that you work with, your battalion mates, whoever, and to depend on each other and to work together, because one man alone can't do it. And in a battle that we got to win, we need other men with us. And if you don't accept that there's a battle going on, you may not see the need for other men, but the reality is we all have it. And Dan, I will say, not only do we know that you're tempted, but there's actually, part of the Bible that talks about some of the greatest attacks come upon those in leadership.
That's right.
And so it's not that you don't have it. In many ways, you may have it at a greater level than people can ever appreciate. Because Satan doesn't want to just take down one person. He wants to take down people who are at the apex, whether it's fathers who are leading families, whether it's leaders of the community, and certainly leaders of the church. And we see leaders fall, but we all have the opportunity with redemption to try and go back, because it's necessary. We're all sinners, and it's going to happen. This is a fascinating conversation. And we are getting to the place, I know, where we probably have to wrap this up, but I'm not ready for that. So I have to tell you, I thought of 10 different conversations we could go down from this. Absolutely. And so what I'm going to do, which I've rarely done on air, is say we need to bring y'all back, because I think we have a chance to just really delve into some things that this will be a great teaser to that next opportunity. And so thank y'all for taking time out of your busy schedules, taking two important pastors out of the same church for the day is a part of the day is a big deal. But I hope for our audience that what you're saying, not just as pastors, but as father and son, as two people in leadership, and just two men of God, that people can realize that this is an important relationship and the one that we can depend on. And Dan, I thank you today for helping me see that God's only son was brought here, and that sonship is the relationship God is calling us into, and how that plays into others joining and being a part of things. And Braden, thank you for stepping up as the next generation. I know that you're about to walk into a whole new world with that daughter of yours, and so I hope it goes great. To our audience, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to listen, to be here. And hopefully this is a great teaser for a future conversation. Please go to our website, sign up for our newsletter. It's really the best way to see the comprehensive nature of what we're doing at The Redeemed. Get involved in a small group. What you've heard today, men, this is a battle, and we want to do it with you. And our community isn't here to fight you. Our community is here to protect you. And remember this, and I say it as someone who has great experience with it, get uncomfortable early. The more you're willing to tell your story, the more you're willing to share your difficulties, the faster it brings men into relationship and into reality with each other. So thank you for all you do. Have a wonderful night. Good luck and Godspeed.